Good evening and welcome to the Way Out Show. I'm your host, Dane McCarthy, broadcasting to you from FEMA Region 5 deep in the bowels of the United Police State of Amnesia. Today is February 2nd, 2015, and we're looking at, hopefully, the end of winter and the beginning of spring. And indeed, the climate does change. We have various seasons in this part of the world, and it indeed has been an unusually cold, although not out of the range of the normal range of warm and cold winters. It's on the cold side. I wouldn't say it's never, in my experience, living in this part of the world, out of the range. I mean, it's nothing like it's not like we haven't ever experienced this level of cold before. And I have to go back to my research, looking at what people say about the sun, the level of heat that is put out by the sun is the most important driver by far of warming and cooling on planet Earth. The sun is crucial. I mean, we wouldn't have a planet without the sun. I mean, what can you say? I mean, the sun is, the size of the Earth is so small compared to the sun. If you look at one of these coronal ejections that come out of a sunspot, actually it's like two sunspots with they revolve. There's usually two sunspots, and they revolve in opposite directions. They have they're sort of clashing, and out in between comes an enormous plasma, a burst of plasma, like an explosion, going way out into space, and it causes tremendous heat, and that's why the sun, when there are more sunspots, has a greater warming effect on the planet than when there are fewer sunspots. And I saw a photograph of a comparison of one of these big explosions of plasma, and the Earth is like a little pea next to it. The Earth is not a pea next to the sun. The Earth is a pea next to the, in the photograph, that's maybe 4 inches long of the coronal ejection, and then the Earth is like this little thing next to it, a little tiny little dot almost. The people don't, I guess because the sun is so far away and it looks kind of small in the distance, people don't understand how big and powerful the sun is. I think it's important for people to remember that when they're thinking about climate. People have this exaggerated idea of their own importance in the universe. We truly are a manifestation of life that's very small and a very big universe. And nevertheless, there's an ongoing effort to blame climate change on humans, like as if humans can actually influence the weather and the climate. Now, we do have weather weapons. We do have things like dropping into the stratosphere particles, tiny nanoparticles of various metals, barium and strontium and aluminum and other metals, and other particles like sulfites that do have an effect on the weather locally, temporarily, as long as you keep seeding the stratosphere with these particles. You can temporarily have an effect. You can prevent it from raining. You can in some cases cause it to rain. So, and humans are getting more and more of control of localized weather systems as technology increases. But the idea that willy-nilly the release of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere will change the climate is absurd, because the amount of carbon dioxide that humans release into the atmosphere compared to the natural systems as a result of solar activity, and secondarily as a result of the tremendous amount of pressure and heat created within the Earth, which explodes out in volcanic eruptions and so on, which get which release enormous amounts of carbon in the form of carbon particles, but that go up temporarily as dust, but also as carbon dioxide, and it's just no comparison. Even the climate scientists who completely believe that humans are causing, if you really pin them down, will only they realistically will say that maybe 3 to 5% influence, and the people who are against it say, look, it's negligible, and really 3 to 5% is negligible. This means if we spent all of our time trying to decrease the amount of carbon dioxide released by human activity on the planet, which would cost trillions upon trillions upon trillions of dollars and bankrupt, can you imagine a tax on your carbon footprint? That means everything you do can you imagine the bureaucracy, for one thing, would be, and just keeping track of it. Every time you get in the car, you're taxed because the car releases carbon dioxide. And other things, buying things, because that's something, whatever it is you buy, that has to be made. And you have to apply heat to it to create it. So, this could go on, this could be just, it's a useless effort, no matter how much it could be done. Even if they were able to succeed in this insane idea, which is really impossible logistically, they would only have a 3 to 5% influence on the climate at the very top, even from their own numbers. I've had people lie to me. I had a close associate of James Hansen tell me that humans were responsible for 75% of climate change. And this is just a straight up lie. I nailed him down in a public forum and asked him a question. Very simple question. What percentage of global warming is due to human activity? And he told me 75%. He was like, at first it was like I hit him. It was like, oh, it's like somebody punched him. Oof. Oh, he was like in a complete, threw him off so bad. He wasn't expecting that kind of question. Very simple, basic question, really. And he comes up with this number, 75%. And I said, 75%, that's more than influence on the climate even than the sun. You're saying that humans have more influence on the planet than the sun. And he said, it's because of all the extra people. Because we have 7 billion people on the planet. I just shut up after that. And I left shortly after. But when I thought about it afterwards, I thought, and 50% of those people are living in abject poverty, on maybe $2.50, $3 a day. What's their carbon footprint? How many clothes are they, how many manufactured products are they buying? They don't have the money to spend on, and a lot of them live in warm areas. They can't heat their houses. That's another thing. If you heat your house, baby, you are expending energy, and that energy has to be created or controlled. It has to be transferred. It has to be manufactured in some way. It has to be delivered, whether it would be electricity or natural gas or propane, or even solar panels or wind. Those solar panels have to be manufactured. The the minerals that are used to create those have to be mined, and it all takes energy. It takes a burning of some kind, carbon dioxide being given off. Well, I have a short clip. It's only 4 minutes, but this gives you an example of the kind of pressure in a public forum that happens to people who have the opposing view to the mainstream and the state propaganda view. And we're going to run this, and it's in a public forum. Let's run it.
Man-made carbon dioxide has a significant impact on our climate. With history, facts, and scientific theory all on the side of realists, why is human-caused global warming still so controversial? Well, I believe that alarmists are winning on the scientific front, and while alarmists are winning with the media, the realists are winning on the scientific front, while alarmists are winning with the media, the politicians, and the public. The media, the public, and most politicians may have little scientific literacy, but they still play a major role in this global warming war. The media has helped move the global warming into the political and the economic arenas. Journalists influence a great many readers, and many of them are aggressively pushing humans causing global warming. The alarmists, they refuse to accept that today's weather is within the historical, natural climate variability. And they are reluctant to admit that we humans have little control over natural forces. Now, I do not believe that people should just buy what others are telling them. They should look at the data themselves. They should remember that the argument is not about climate changing, it is about the cause of climate change. It should be made clear that what alarmists are pushing is not a theory, it's their guess based on their interpretation of their observations. Now, they have not even come close to meeting the scientific criteria for theory.
I'm going to have to interrupt here. I understand from our hosts here that they are going to be clearing this room fairly quickly. Is that correct?
Well,
John Kerry is coming here, but we have how long? 2-3 minutes?
Good, I'm going to finish.
All right, we'll let him finish.
Okay. At this stage in the war on human-caused global warming, the battle for the public's perception seems more critical than the scientific fight. Historical data is not just another opinion, and we should all look at the historical data before forming our own opinion. Don't just buy the opinions of others, and that includes me. Having followed my own advice, I have not found one piece of evidence that supports the alarmist campaign. I will share my conclusions so we can get out of here. Based on historical data, there is no reason to be concerned about today's temperature or the temperature trend. Human-produced carbon dioxide plays a very tiny role in global temperature when compared to the natural factors. 3, there is no reason to believe that today's carbon dioxide and temperature levels are the ideal ones. 4, higher temperatures and higher carbon dioxide levels will save more lives than lower levels will. 5, it is a fantasy to think that humans can have significant influence on global temperatures. Now, if you're concerned about one of the greatest scientific hoaxes of all time, I advise you to check the data and then draw your own conclusions. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Cunningham.
Okay, so there you have the clip from, again, a public forum, and this group of 3 men were given the opportunity to air their views, and they were actually given 35 minutes, but then that was cut down to a matter of just a few minutes. And the reason was because Secretary of State John Kerry was going to speak after them, and he wanted to have a photo op in that room. And this was the excuse that was given. Now, John Kerry is a very strong supporter of the state line, of the party, of the government line, that if we do not give the government vastly increased powers to tax, to maybe establish the cap and trade, to directly tax carbon, every aspect of our lives, then there's going to be doom, gloom, the end of the world, apocalypse, 5 foot to 10, 20 feet rise in sea levels. I mean, the fantasy of the gloom, of the horror of the apocalypse that they are constantly bombarding people with, it becomes ridiculous and funny because they've been doing this since the late 80s, so all the way through the 90s. Now we are in 2015, and it still hasn't happened. In the 90s, they said it was going to happen in the early 2000s. In the 2000s, they said it was going to happen in the early teens. And now we're in the middle teens, 2015, and it still hasn't happened. And they haven't been able to get through their program. And why? Because more and more people, as the years progress, are just simply not believing them. And they're also, like Colonel Cunningham said, they're doing their own research. They're finding out for themselves whether or not what they're being told by the government and the various governments, not just the U.S. government, but various other governments, are actually telling them that it's simply not true. It's a straight up they're made up numbers, they're cooking the numbers, and you might think, oh, they wouldn't do that. They would never, the government would never lie to us, would they? They wouldn't lie to us about something like that. But yet, if you look at it, and these guys were apparently from Climate Depot. Climate Depot is exactly what it is. It is a website which gathers together articles, papers, videos, documentaries about the whole issue of whether or not humans are responsible for climate change. That's what it's about. Climate Depot, very simple, very basic stuff. We are told by the media over and over and over and over and over again in multiple sources that the science is settled, that virtually all scientists agree that humans are responsible for global warming. And forget what the temperature is outside. Forget that you have record low temperatures in many, many places around the world. Forget that you have an historical example like the medieval warming period to show that to put the lie to what they're saying. Forget that. Don't look at that. Don't look at the historical record, which shows that the climate was much warmer during the time period of recorded history. And instead, we're supposed to believe that never in history of the planet has there been this high of temperatures. And you have the famous hockey stick graph, which goes along like this: up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Just a little bit, and then all of a sudden in the modern era, in the last 100 years or so, whoosh, straight up. And that's why it's called the hockey stick, because it looks like a hockey stick. It's straight, and then it goes right up at a steep angle. And the reason why it looks like a hockey stick is they deliberately took out the deepest valleys and the highest mountains on the graph. Oh, they explain, well, we did that because it made it more simple, more easy to understand. Well, yeah, very convenient. To make it your point that we are at a crucial time period of collapsing civilization, no matter that back in the 70s, they said the exact opposite, and that we were, yes, going to have collapsing civilization, but as a result of global cooling, which causes desertification. And now they're saying that global warming causes desertification. Well, apparently, according to them, every kind of change causes desertification. And it's just absurd. It's just absurd. We're actually in terms of historical and global perspective, we are in a period of low CO2, which does indeed cause desertification. Low CO2 does cause desertification. Why? Because CO2 is very extremely essential. It is basic to human life via plants. Plants require ample sources of CO2 for them to thrive and survive and grow tall and healthy. They require that. And humans are directly in a symbiotic relationship with plants. And if plants do not thrive, then it's not good for anybody. Not good for anybody on the planet, plant or animal, including humans. Because, most of virtually all of the food that humans eat, I know this is apparently complex, but people seem to forget that food comes from plants. And you could say, well, no, what about seafood? What about beef? That's not a plant. Well, yeah, but animals eat plants in order to survive. The smallest fish in the sea, or the smallest biological organisms that are animals, they thrive on plants. Then up the food chain they go, the smaller animals being eaten by the larger animals, and then finally up to the top of the food chain, the humans. And whales and things like this, porpoises, the big animals that eat the smaller animals. And so we need carbon dioxide. It is not a poisonous gas. And you might think, well, it's like carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide. Isn't that what comes out of farts, carbon dioxide? Isn't that what that is? Or isn't carbon dioxide what comes out? Won't it kill you? I mean, it comes out of the back of car exhaust, carbon dioxide? No, that's carbon monoxide, okay? It's a totally different thing. There are growers and things who have greenhouses who actually pump in extra carbon dioxide into their greenhouses because it makes the plants grow better. Now the EPA, and this is a fact, you can look it up, has ruled that carbon dioxide is harmful, is a toxic gas, it is harmful to human health. And you want to say that this system is not completely corrupt from top to bottom? We think of the EPA as a benevolent department in the U.S. government. It's the one that's trying to save the planet. But yet, it has been co-opted by, there's very powerful political, agenda-driven forces in the halls of power in Washington and globally, to the point where it can actually make a ruling like this, and we're just supposed to believe this? It's just like when a few years ago the EPA put polar bears on the endangered watch list for endangered animals, in danger of going extinct. Polar bears, excuse me? Polar bears are doing just fine. They're extremely resourceful. They said, well, the ice is melting and they die if they can't have ice? Well, for one thing, the ice is not melting. I mean, I have these conversations with people that say, well, yeah, what about the ice caps? The ice caps are melting. Oh, really? It is so easy to find out if the ice caps are melting. All you have to do is look on a recent satellite photo of the ice caps. And you can find out for yourself whether or not the ice caps are melting. And they keep saying, well, you know, the Northwest Passage, that's going to be, at least we have the Northwest Passage opening up, and merchant vessels and various other vessels, military or whatever, will be able to go around the north side of Canada and go all the way to the Pacific Ocean using what they call the Northwest Passage. And that's because it's opened up. Well, I think maybe it has opened up a couple of times, but most of the year it's blocked with ice, so it's completely impassable, and I think that's still the case now. And really what we're looking at is a period of what they're calling the pause. Even the people who believe that humans are causing global warming are admitting that, well, indeed, yes, there is no global warming, and they're calling it the pause. And what is the pause? The pause started in the late 90s, and ever since then, there has been no global warming. And some of these scientists are saying that, well, this could go on till the end of the decade. Okay, so we're looking at 20 years plus, at least 20 years, of pause. But they're saying, well, watch out. After the end of that pause, it's Katie bar the door, baby. We better do something. Really better. You need to give us all your money because we need to spend it all on fixing this problem. And people will tell me, you know, I had a conversation with my sister the other day where she says, well, what about all the toxins? What about all the pollution that we're putting, and the chemicals, and the oil spills, and all that? And I say, I hate that. I think it's terrible. What about, not to mention radiation, hello? Fukushima is putting out unbelievable amounts of radiation. It's still on. It is not fixed. We have leaks from multiple radioactive sources, including in the United States, as we speak. That's very toxic. You talk about toxic, but really, she says, how can you be for that? You're not for that, are you? I said, no. I mean, global warming is about CO2. That's all they ever talk about. Global warming is caused, they also mention methane, but methane is not, they say, well, it's much stronger than CO2. Well, methane doesn't last in the atmosphere at all very long, not like CO2. So they don't really concentrate on methane much. They talk about it a little bit to scare people once in a while, and they go like, oh boy. Once we get to that point where that methane is released in that northern hemisphere up by the Arctic Circle, and all those bogs that are frozen, and that methane is trapped, and once they unfreeze, that methane is going to come out, and oh boy, it's going to be the end. The end. It'll be too late. It'll be apocalypse, death and destruction. Well, we have death and destruction right now. Guess what probably is one of the major, besides peaceful pollution sources like Fukushima, we have the U.S. military. We have other militaries, but the U.S. military is by far the biggest, baddest, most destructive organization to the environment, not just to humans, not just the fact that they're killing millions of humans like a million to 1.5 million Iraqis dead, Iraqi civilians, most of them, in Iraq by the U.S. military. I mean, how about, if you don't care about humans, how about the environment? How about throwing around tons upon tons upon tons of bullets, ordnance, shells, rockets, bombs made with depleted uranium? And you might say, well, what's depleted uranium? Depleted uranium is what's left over from the enriched uranium that is used to make atomic weapons and nuclear for peaceful purposes. And it's been adopted by the military as a weapon, which they said, by the way, that they wouldn't do because it's too dangerous. And what they said was, well, we decided it's not dangerous. We're going to use it. And so they tell their soldiers who handle depleted uranium, which is radioactive and toxic and dangerous, that it's not dangerous. They just tell them that. They're allowed to do that. The government is allowed to lie to us legally, just like a police officer. A police officer is allowed to lie to you legally. And they just, well, so they just do it what they want. And it's up to human beings, American citizens, and people around the world to inform themselves, because you are not going to get the full picture from the state-run media. It is not in the state-run media's best interest. It is not in the politicians and the multinational corporations' best interest to tell you the complete and full story. And I love to give the example of how they tell you information, but they always don't tell you the information. They give you the information, but they don't give you the information. Because in every single day of our entire lives, the mainstream media are supposedly giving us information. So they have two people who have completely opposing viewpoints on some subject matter. They might say, are there too many people on the planet, or are there not too many people on the planet? Or is this new product safe, or is it not safe? And they'll have some guy up there who says, this product is not safe, or this drug. We've done studies. This drug is toxic. This drug has a whole list of side effects. And here is the list that's put out by the company that manufactures the drug. And we've done the research, we've done the tests, we've been working on this for 10 years. And then they'll go, okay, well, thank you. Now, what do you think, sir? And then they'll have the guy from the company that made the product there, and he'll say, this guy is lying. This, he's from our competitors. Their study is flawed. In fact, this is completely safe. We have completely and thoroughly tested this. And this is right after the guy said they have not completely and thoroughly tested this. And they had, the reality is that for the drugs and things, they might, maybe a couple of months at the most. And who pays for the tests? And the guy who's against the new drug says, and who pays for the tests? Well, I'll tell you who pays for the tests. The manufacturers of the drug pay for the tests. And what do you suppose the result of that test is going to be? And then they'll say, oh, thank you, sir, and thank you, sir, and good evening, have a good evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. And thank you for watching our show. And it's like, for the average person, it's like, I don't know. They both seem like they made pretty strong arguments. I don't know what to think. And there must be laws in place and things to keep this drug from hurting people, because after all, the guy who is the representative of the company that made the drug said, well, the U.S. government has certified that the CDC, you know, and the other alphabet soup of departments and organizations that have certified that this is completely safe and harmless. And they go, well, I mean, why would they say it was safe if it wasn't safe? So I think this other guy is full of hooey, you know, or maybe I just don't know. They'll just say, I just don't know. I don't know what to think. You know, maybe they're both right. Maybe neither of them. So you get the typical American, and he watches the news every day on TV, and he never really knows anything. He never really learns the truth. How can he? How can he? Unless he goes to the alternative media, which says, well, look, the government agencies are completely corrupt, and they are run by criminals who should be in prison, and they have killed thousands upon thousands of people in America, American citizens. It is an outlaw, criminal, rogue, self-serving organization that is completely owned by multinational corporations who have no interest in the welfare of American citizens and keeping American citizens healthy, because a healthy citizen is to them a healthy citizen to a multinational corporation that makes, you know, you name it, medical equipment, hospitals, drugs, all kinds of, you know, multi-billion, this is a multi-billion, hundreds of billions a year industry. The wellness industry, they call it the wellness. They don't call it the sickness industry, they call it the wellness industry. And healthcare, not, you know, premiums, got to get those premiums coming in. The last thing that you want to do is have people be healthy. You want people to be just a little bit sick, so they have to take medications, and multiple medications, ideally, to the point where they become lifetime semi-invalids that provide you with a very substantial revenue stream throughout their entire life, and then presumably die young before they can become a drag on the system and start reaping the benefits of that they have earned, like for instance in Social Security. So they have no interest in the welfare of ordinary citizens. They have a responsibility, they have an obligation, they have signed their name in blood to serve their masters, those rich investors that write their check when it comes to paycheck and wage time, and they are, by golly, going to honor that commitment that they have made. And you might think, oh, human beings would never do that. Well, yeah, some human beings would never do that, but some human beings would do that. Because after all, you know, they have their own mortgage to pay. They have their own kids to raise, to send off to college. They have their own high insurance rates to pay. They've got to pay for their car that probably isn't paid off. They have obligations, financial obligations. And it becomes a survival of the fittest kind of situation. Well, I can't think about those people because I just can't. I have to think of myself and my family first. They come first, and that's just too bad. That's just too bad. It's the same way in the military. That's the same mindset. And people say like, oh, we need socialism, we need collectivism, we all need to work together as a group for the common good. Does this sound like something that would work given the nature of most human beings and the situation that most human beings find themselves in? You have to draw the line. You have to have priorities. And it's unfortunate that it's that way. Only a few people are saintly and do not put their own and their families' interests number one at the top of the list, who get served, who get helped, who thought about it. So people over and over and over find themselves in this awful dilemma where they literally have to sign their soul to the devil, sign away their soul in order to survive. That's what they think, anyway. That's what they think. That's what they've been led to believe, that they have no other choice. In reality, they do. There's the options available to a human being in the world, in an infinite universe, full of possibility, are also almost infinite. You are only limited by your own mental self-imposed limitations. Oh, I could never do that. That's what people tell themselves. Oh, I could never do that. That would be I need the security. I've got to do it. I don't want to do it, but I've got to do it. This happens all the time, constantly. I mean, even to the point where people in the military feel like, I have to kill that guy, I have to torture that guy, because if I don't, I will get demoted, I will lose my job, I won't be able to care for my family. So therefore, you end up destroying your own life because you have killed someone, you have tortured someone, and they pay for that later. I mean, and then this is the situation that young men and now young women, unfortunately, find themselves in when they get into a so-called war zone. It's all part of the same system. It works very much in the same way. They find themselves in a war zone, and then they realize that, oh my God, these people are just like me that I'm killing. They're doing the exact same thing. They're trying to protect their children from us. They're trying to keep us from running them over, and we're protecting these people who are actually a bunch of butchers and criminals who are in the government, who are running the government, who are completely corrupt, who are drug pushers. This is Afghanistan and really Iraq too. I mean, and my own high level, the officers are high level, they're corrupt. They're running the sex slaves, they're running the drugs, they're selling the arms to the other side as well as to the black market, wherever they can make a buck. And because they think, of course, these upper level generals and elites think, hey, it's number one. I got to look out for number one. But it just becomes crazier and crazier and crazier and crazier. And people essentially have no sense that there is a great kindness in the universe. And just leave it at that. That we are born to thrive and enjoy our lives, and it doesn't require destroying our lives, our souls, what's basic and most essential to a human being in order to survive. That is the very opposite of why we're even on this planet in the first place. We're on the planet to survive, yes, but that's not the purpose we're on the planet. We have a strong urge to survive because we are meant to enjoy our lives and lead fulfilled lives as human beings. And what is fulfillment, you might say? Is that, getting as many whores as possible? Is that fulfillment? Is getting rich as possible and getting a yacht and a palace or 2 palaces or a McMansion or fancy cars or fancy clothes? No. It's appreciating the reality of life. The reality of life being that we are alive in the world. Wow, that's amazing in itself. Every day, it's a magical, wonderful, beautiful life. And why would you want to waste that by, torturing a guy in a black op prison somewhere in Eastern Europe? Oh, it's my job, I had to do it, I knew that he was innocent. Like, did you ever see that documentary, Taxi to the Dark Side? Powerful, powerful. I mean, they just killed these people because they were bored, essentially. Some taxi driver, they knew he didn't do anything. And they held him, they just hung him from the ceiling and beat him to death over a period of weeks. From the waist down or the hips down, his legs were just pulverized. He was just hanging. They beat him to a pulp, literally. And maybe 2 people went to prison, but yet all they were doing was following orders. And this is a situation that a young person is going to find themselves in, maybe, down the road. Like in that movie, American Sniper. Who were the first 2 people that Chris Kyle shoots in the streets of Baghdad in Iraq? Or maybe it was Afghanistan, I'm not sure. The first one is a little boy, and the second one is like his sister, or his mother, maybe. And yeah, okay, they had this bomb that they were going to throw at the American soldiers, which is, I'm thinking, well, why would they do that? I mean, these guys have guns. Why would they let them? Anyway, but anyway, of course, the heroic Chris Kyle sees them, and it's like, oh, I've got to kill this kid. So he does. And you have to wonder, I don't know if that's really true. Maybe it did happen. Chris Kyle wrote his own autobiography with another guy, and maybe it is true. And I don't know. I haven't read it, actually. Or maybe that's just something that Clint Eastwood came up with. I think Clint Eastwood actually very subtly sabotaged his own movie. And not sabotaged it, but you would think, okay, well, this is aggrandizement of an American hero. But yet the first thing we see him do is kill a little boy. And you have to wonder, that's not very heroic. And so you have to take pause, and you have to wonder, maybe he's making a statement, an artistic statement with this film about the price you pay when you do something like this. And we know, of course, Americans know that we were lied to get into the war in Iraq. We were lied to in order to get into the war. I hate even to use the term war. It's more like adventure for profit. But they pulled out all the stops. Condoleezza Rice said, Saddam Hussein has nuclear weapons, definitely, and he will not hesitate to use them. And the next thing we see on TV may be a mushroom cloud. And he has the weapons of mass destruction, and we need to take him out. We need regime change. And And some Americans just got into it like it was a sports game. It's like, get out the beer, break out the chips, turn on the TV and the big widescreen TV and watch the explosions as they kill people in Baghdad. For what? For why? What reason? Well, we know the reason why, the real reason. Because Saddam Hussein was getting too big for his britches. He was becoming too successful. He was creating a first world country out of a third world country, a prosperous country in which people were educated, in which people had some clout and some money, and they needed to be destroyed because that is the policy, is to keep the Middle East under the thumb of the West. You don't want them to have too much power, because then they will be able to control the flow of oil and the other natural resources. It's the big game. It's the geopolitical game of chess that has gone on for centuries between the great powers of the world. Between China, the West, Russia, and whoever else at the time is one of the top players. And the pawns and the sacrifice zones are in the Middle East. And the people are a problem. You need to keep them poor. You need to keep them disorganized. You need to keep them undernourished. Chaos. You need chaos. Chaos is the perfect state of condition of life that you want to foment, you want to create. And that's it's very big, it's very complicated, it's convoluted. That the United States, for instance, and I'm going off topic, but I think you got the idea about the climate change. The very idea that the United States would consider, as is happening now, giving weapons, major big-time weapons, to ISIL in order to attack, essentially ISIL, attack itself, and also to attack the Syrian government is, on the face of it, insane. It appears to be insane. We need to attack the people that we want to get rid of, but in order to do that, we need to arm them so they can attack themselves. And we're supposed to believe that. Without saying that, well, we're really arming ISIL so that they will attack Syria and they will help us and act as proxies to create a situation in which regime change can happen in Syria, which is on the list. Hey, Syria is on the list for regime change. They've been going down the list ever since 2001. And they're going to keep after it until they get them all down, all finished, all destroyed, and complete anarchy and chaos so they can come in and fix it. But with them in charge. So the U.S. government says, and the West, its allies, says, we're going to arm ISIL to attack ISIL, and we're not going to call it ISIL, but it actually is ISIL, which is a direct descendant of Al-Qaeda. It's essentially the same group. But they don't call it Al-Qaeda because Al-Qaeda is associated with 9/11, and we want to start fresh. It's a whole new game now. See, we want to give the appearance that we defeated Al-Qaeda. Because of your money and my money and our hard work and the loyal and brave soldiers, we defeated Al-Qaeda, and they're no longer a threat. And this ISIL, they just came out of nowhere. They just appeared, and they had all this money and all these trucks and brand new trucks. Beautiful. I wish I had one of those trucks they've got. Like American trucks, rows of them. I mean, now they have these, they're going to get these weapons. And they say, well, we didn't give them to ISIL, actually. We gave them to a moderate group. But yet, then like 2 weeks later, you see photographs, and there's ISIL, and they've got the Al-Qaeda flag, the black flag, the same flag, and they're flying it from the truck, and it's the same truck, identical, even the same color, as was given a couple of years ago to the moderate group. And if you talk to the leaders of the moderate groups, it's like, well, we don't really have a problem with ISIL because our goal is to destroy the government of Syria and put in our government, our new government. And you might wonder, well, I mean, not all these people can be U.S. agents and proxies and being paid by the U.S. government. Well, it's true. People do have legitimate grievances. And so this is what the West counts on. Because the governments of these countries, yes, they are repressive. Saddam Hussein was repressive. The government of Egypt was repressive. It's still repressive. Libya, Gaddafi, he was repressive. These are dictators. They're not like democracies, but the people really don't understand democracy. They don't get it. They don't get that you have to give up all this stuff in order to get something. You have to work together instead of just fighting for your buddies and your family. So I guess I'm running out of time. So that's all for today. Enjoy your weekend and sleep well.